Hi, everyone. Welcome to week 2. This week we have a cost effectiveness analysis. This is going to be our first analysis. We're going to conduct 3 in the class. This type of analysis is exactly as the name mentions. We are going to look at some different options where we have the costs already laid out, as well as the effectiveness of the different options, and we're going to decide which one is best. So before we get started on really digging into what this means, I thought I'd point you to our week 2 announcement that's posted in the announcements. It has some information about the week, and then it details an overview of cost effectiveness analysis. There's 3 different links. One has previous research, so you can see how it's used in the real world. The other 2 are like basic trainings. This one's a little more comprehensive and details CBA as well, which we'll be doing next week. You can actually get a certificate for this one. So if you really like to do that, you want something to add to your compass, this would be a good one. If you just want the basic overview, this would be quicker. But basically, let's start digging into our specific assignment, and I think it'll help you to understand how we're going to use it. So this is the assignment in the classroom, and you can go into this link right here, and then you can open this first file, and it's going to show the flow of what we're looking at. So don't let this make you nervous. We are only doing this top part this week, and this is for the entire class. So we're going to go through a few different documents, and I will go through which one you open first and what you do in each one coming up. So this is just kind of an overview. And then you can go back here and download our case study. And this will tell you the basic instructions. So this will be for the entire class. So this is all parts of the assignment. And you're going to learn more about what this facility is doing right now, what changes they would like to make, the reasons they're wanting to make these changes, just a basic overview. So once you get through reviewing this, then you can go back and we can actually go into our assignment for the week. So you can go back to module 2 to the assignment, and this is what it looks like when you go into the assignment. And so this is our first assignment file. You're going to want to go into here first, and I think I have it already opened. Oh, I don't think I actually do, unfortunately. Okay, so this is the first assignment for this specific week. And so we are going to look at our facility, we're having trouble with employees washing their hands. And so we're going to introduce a measure that is going to help increase hand washing compliance. And so for that, we have several different options. We know the costs of these different options. We also know the compliance rate, which you could term as the effectiveness. So we are going to look at the cost and effectiveness of each one. We're going to try to pick an option that gives us the highest effectiveness with the lowest cost to reduce some of our issues with hand washing compliance. Here, it's going to give you kind of a play-by-play as to what those passwords are going to look like as we get started. But I also created a handy-dandy sheet that I have emailed you. I may have to reopen this. I apologize for that. I'm going to reopen that for you so that way you can see what this looks like. But you do have it in your email as well. And so in this email, I have the list of documents that you're going to want to go into because as we've seen with the project, there's just a bunch of links, and some of them have passwords on them. We don't know how to get in there. And so this document will help you know where to start. So the first document you're going to open is hand washing observations initial, and there's no password required to enter this file. And so let's go back over, and that is what this looks like right here, hand washing observations initial. And so we're going to pull that up, and it's going to look sort of like this. So it has information, and then it has a chart at the bottom, and you're supposed to figure out some information, and it's going to give you what you need to figure out back in these assignment instructions. Right here, it says, here's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to find 3 different percentages. And so if you look at the file that I gave you, the first percentage, we're looking for those who wash their hands at least 1 time. To find this total, you'll sum column H. And so I am going to bring over a file for you that is not the same one that you have, but it's things that I've added that you may find helpful. So we're going to total column H first. So for column H, this is our hand washing, yes or no. It says no hand wash. This data right here is called binary data. This is used a lot in statistics, specifically logistic regression. And a 0 means they did not wash their hands, and a 1 means they washed their hands. It didn't mean that they washed their hands when they entered and exited, just that they washed their hands 1 time. You'll notice on this column A over here, we have 50 different observations. We are going to have 100 total observations though, because we are watching them when they enter and when they exit. They're supposed to wash their hands. And so for this no hand wash, that means they didn't wash them at all, whereas 1 is a yes. So they may have not done it both times, but they've done it at least once. And that's what they're wanting for that first percentage. So to find this, we are going, to go home. And then we are going to auto sum that column right there. And it's going to give us 41. And we're going to note that we only have 50 people. So to find a percentage, we're going to have to take our total equals 41 divided by 50. And that will give us 82%. What you might come up with if you don't have it formatted as a percent, you might come up with a decimal 0.82, but you can move that decimal 2 places to move it into a percent. And that is your very first percentage you're supposed to have. And that would be 82%. So percent washed hands at least once. Our next percentage is percent washed hands in and out. And so I put over in my sheet, we are going to want to sum column G, because that's indicating that they wash their hands in and out. And so if you look at our binary data again, you see that these are no. 0 means no because they just did it once. But down here where they washed it both times, they have a 1. And so both enter and exit, we should sum up. And then we can get our total of 16. And remember, we have 50. So we're going to take 16 divided by 50, and we'll get 32%. So our second percent is going to be 32. Now our final is total compliance for all observations. So in order to do this, there's a couple of ways to do it. The third percentage is calculated by adding up all the Y's in the inner and all the Y's in the exit, and then we add them together. Since we have 100 total observations, 50 here and 50 here, we do not need to divide it by 50 because that'll be our total. Now, this you can just add up by hand, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then put a total here, and add them together. This is really the easiest way. If you are not Excel savvy, this class does not require you to be super Excel savvy. However, if you don't want to add all the Y's up and total them for your total, you can come over here and use an Excel spreadsheet called COUNTIF. What we're doing here is COUNTIF, and then in parentheses, we're looking at columns E and column F. And so E4 and F4 for this first one. And then we'll put a comma afterwards, and then we're looking to count the number of Y's. The Y's that are in these columns. So you'll see when we get out of our parentheses and press enter, we'll see that there's 0 because there are 0 Y's in this column. And then we can copy and paste, get your formula, and Control-C and Control-V all the way down. And so you can copy and paste that, and that'll give you the number of Y's without you having to count them. That said, if you are not computer savvy, this is not required. but it's another Excel way to find the answer here. And then you'll just auto sum at the bottom, and that will be your third percentage, and you'll put it here. And so this is the same thing as calculating your total percentage. You'll have the total number of observations, and it'll give you your total. So those three percentages are pretty straightforward. However, there's this handy dandy chart here. And so you're probably going to want to fill this out. You don't really need to do it, but there are a couple quiz questions that ask about a couple columns out here. And so I want to make sure that you have an understanding of how to do this. And so if I want to figure out all this information by unit, I might want to do that because my supervisor might say, hey, what department's really the problem? What department's really not washing their hands? Because it's possible, 4 of these are doing well and there's only one that's having issues. And maybe it's something that needs supervised rather than, putting a different policy in place. And so there's good reason that this is sometimes done. Now, here's what I recommend. Since we've already calculated a bunch of data here, what I recommend doing is taking your sheet, highlighting this data, right-clicking, and copying it over here to this other area. Just because you don't want to mess up what you've done correctly, and you've already done something correctly. And so you have it right. So let's move this over here to fill out this bottom part. And so if you notice my data, it doesn't look like the data does over here. It's actually in order to where it has each of the different areas that we're going to look at in this in order. And how I did that was I did a process called sorting the data. And so what I did is I just highlighted everything I copied and pasted. And then I went to data and sort. And it'll ask you what you want to sort by. In my instance, I wanted to sort by column U. It may be different however you copy and paste it over. You're going to want to sort by unit right here. And the reason that I sort everything is because I don't know if you've ever sorted data before, but I know we've all sorted data to where we just ended up sorting this one column here. So that way, our hand washing didn't come over with it. And if our hand washing does not come over with it, that's a problem because, we would think we were adding them up for CCU when we were not. And so I always sort all the data. And what I like about doing it this way is we had observation numbers. And so if you get through sorting your data and it still says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you know that you haven't sorted this whole selection. So that's why I feel like it's important to sort everything. That way, you've sorted it all. And so then now you're to the point where you can fill out this little section at the bottom. So we're going to look at CCU first. I went ahead and did this top one for you. These are obviously not finished and correct, but I wanted to give you an idea. These will change once you add more information in. But I wanted to give you information as to what it looks like. So total individuals observed by unit. So let's go over here and see how many are observed. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 total people were observed. And so we would put 5 in the individuals observed. Well, we observe them twice each because we observe them when they enter and when they exit. So what you put in this column is going to be this column times 2. Okay, now we're going to look at the count of enter and count of exit washes. Okay, so for this, for CCU, let me go ahead and highlight this. I think it'll be easier for you to see. I try to do that just to help myself. We had 3 enter, and so we should probably write enter and then exit here. So we had 3 that did when they entered and 3 that did when they exited. So we had 3 enter and 3 exit. So they hand washed both enter and exit. So how many people did that? So we had 1, 2. So we had 2 people that did it both times. And so we would write 2. Hand wash at least once. And so hand wash at least once, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4 hand washed at least one time. And you can see you could just total them there as well. And then we would have our last column that's in your sheet, which is no hand wash, enter, or exit. And so no hand wash is just this first observation here. So we just have one person. And then we can go back and start adding our information together by total hand washes. We're doing total hand washes so we can determine compliance. So our total hand washes we have here are 6. We take the D column and the E column and we just add them together, count of enter, count of exit. So we had 6 washes, and then we can figure our compliance because like I say, our supervisor at some point may want to know which department is causing this problem. And so to find total compliance, we take our total hand washes, which is what I said, why we were finding this, and we divide it by the total observations. So 6 divided by 10 gives us a very easy 60%. And you can go ahead and do that for each of these different departments, and then it'll give you some totals. And it's a good way to check your work from this as well. But this will actually become useful later on the quiz, but isn't maybe necessarily needed to move forward with the spreadsheet. So let's move to the next part. The next part, the next spreadsheet, we're going to look at this SMC hand washing compliance report. To enter this file, we're going to need these 3 percentages. And like I said, I gave you the first 2 is 82 and 32. Once you figure out the other one, you'll have a 6-digit number, 8232, and then the last 2 digits, and that will help you to open this email. So now let's go to the email. Okay. This is the email, and it's going to give you a lot of different information on it. And you're just going to read this. There's nothing you need to do. And that's why I said that on there. However, it is going to give you some helpful information. It's going to tell you the code to get into our next spreadsheet, which is explaining that right here. And it's also going to tell us we can only spend $500,000 to help improve our hand hygiene. And we must have compliance rate of 90% or above. So some of the projects we're going to look at don't have one of these 2. And so this is kind of telling us what we need to do. So let's go back to the sheet that I gave you. So we figured out our email. We understand to enter this file, we're going to enter a 5-digit code using the total compliance rate, the 3rd percentage that you calculated, the one that I didn't give you, followed by total number of observations. So we're going to have 100 total of observations. Now in this spreadsheet, we are going to total the costs and calculate the CEA ratio. So let's go in to this. This is that next spreadsheet that we're going to enter, and it's going to have several different projects. So we can pick one of these options here, but remember, we have to have 90% compliance and we can't spend more than $500,000. So a good first thing to do is let's auto sum and figure out the total costs. So we are going to total the costs up just using auto sum for each of the different projects. And what we notice right away is Clean Freak is going to be more expensive than that $500,000 limit. So we could already go down here and write in the justification, cannot implement cost over 500K. And so over here, we're also going to see some issues with compliance. Remember, the compliance rate was supposed to be 90%. So you're going to have some things you can enter there as well. But before we get to doing it everywhere, let's go ahead and calculate our CEA ratio and do our ranking. So for our first one, we are going to do an equals project cost, which is here, minus our current cost, which is 0. And then we're going to divide that by expected compliance, which is here, minus our current compliance, which is there. And then we are going to have a CEA ratio. And we're going to do that the whole way across. And then we're going to rank them. We're going to want the lowest here. The lowest is going to be the best because that's the lowest cost per compliance. So that's what we're looking for. And then we're going to justify whether we're going to do the project or not. We're only going to pick one of these options. We're not going to pick more than one. You're going to have a situation where, you know, obviously this one won't work, this one won't work, and this one won't work, and this one won't work because they're not 90% compliance. So these are really our two options. So you're going to decide between the two and make a selection. And then we can go back to my sheet that I made for you. And then remember, as you write the justifications, remember the cost constraints as well as the expected compliance requirements. And so our next file we're going to go into is SMC policy and procedure. To enter this, type the name of the best project without spaces followed by the CEA ratio. Don't use cents, only use the dollar amount. And this is going to be a report that we read. There is not going to be any analysis required. So this is the report that we read. It is telling us what's going to happen after we implement our choice, and then it's going to give us a password. And so we are going to use this password to enter in our final file. And now let's go back. So after we've read this, you know, we'll know the information we need to put in. And it says to enter this file, you review the policy. At the bottom, it's going to give you a riddle. The answer to the riddle is found in note section of the file. So look under note and it'll give you the answer to the riddle. And then you're going to do the exact same thing that we did in the initial hand washing, but after we've implemented the new procedure. So that file is going to look, I think this is the final. Yeah, this is the final. We're going to do the same thing again, only we're really only going to need to know total compliance. And you're going to use this number for a future puzzle. So you're just going to count up the Y's here again for both columns, and that's going to be your total compliance. So if you'll notice that we have mostly Y's, so it must have worked and increased our compliance. It might be easier to count the blank spots and then subtract it from 100. But you're going to count up the Y's, and that'll be your total compliance. And you may want to do this different table as well, just to see how each department did. Maybe add the compliance rate here as well for the quiz. But this is the last spreadsheet, and since it's like the first one, I don't think you need as much detail. But that's the last spreadsheet that you'll need for this week. What you'll do when you finish is you're going to submit an Excel spreadsheet to our Dropbox. I prefer that you have all files. Some students are able to put them in one document in different tabs and others are not. If you can't get it, no worries. I can get your spreadsheets to open even if there's your password still in there. That's not a worry either. So please submit that when you're finished, and then you can take the quiz. But you'll want to have this information for the quiz, and then please save all this information. We are going to use this later for a future puzzle. You're going to need this total compliance rate for the future puzzle, so don't forget it, or you'll have to redo some of the work. Plus the CBA, which is next week, we are actually going to utilize that once you take the capstone class. So even if you don't do this in, you know, the real world ever again, you want this information because you are going to be seeing it again in capstone. So I hope you found this to be helpful, and I hope you have a great week.